Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and we like to do watercolor projects. We do a different one every single week. We break it down step by step so you can join in wherever you are. Beginner, intermediate, advanced, it's for you. It's for everybody. Watercolor is.
I have nothing else to add.
Feels like you're speaking the truth. So this project is the Tulip Jar project. Thank you, Keenan. I opened my mouth, so it was like I
actually thought you were singing.
Okay, and we have 7 steps in this project. The very first step is we are going to draw our jar. And I know that we don't actually spend a lot of time drawing, but I learned that it would be extremely helpful if you kind of like place your jar before you do anything else, because it's pretty important. Step number 2, we're gonna add color to our jar. Step number 3, we're going to do the tulip heads. Step number 4, we are going to do the like leaves / stems. Step number 5, we're going to put in our water. So just that little ring right there. Step number 6 is you'll notice that there's a little bit of leaves and stems in the jar. So that's going to be step number 6. And step number 7 is?
Details.
Details. What I like to call details. We are doing 4 colors in this project. We have emerald green. Oh wait, I paint these out. Sorry. Okay, so our very first color is lemon yellow. Our second color is emerald green. Our third color is azure blue.
That's right. Nailed it.
Nailed it. And our fourth color is fuchsia. Yes, great colors.
So bright.
Beautiful, bright, springy colors, am I right? Okay, let's get going. So, we're using a round 6 and a round 2. Those are our 2 brushes. I've given them nicknames because it makes it more fun, I feel.
It does. Makes them feel more family.
Yes, we're all about family here.
And paint.
And paint. And watercolor art, all these things. So we're using a round 6 and a round 2. If you're not sure where to get these, you can get them on our website. You can get these paints on our website. You can get this paper, this tray, this kit, everything you need on our website, letsmakeart.com. So the very first step, we are going to draw in our jar. And the reason I'm having us do this is because this is how many jars I did when I was coming up with this project.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And then on the 5th one, I was like, wait a second, Sarah. What if you draw your jar first? Because what I noticed what I was doing is I was putting the jar like kind of more in the middle of all the pictures. And then if I try and put tulips in, they're gonna go off the page. And so when you put in your jar, have it come like half an inch off the bottom of your page. Do not put it in the center like I was doing.
Classic.
There's a little tip for you. Second tip, sometimes it's a little bit hard to get like a jar symmetrical. I know that sounds funny, but sometimes it like kind of wants to like go wobbly. So that's why maybe a light sketch first is very helpful. The other tip I want to give you, I'm just using a regular pencil for this. However, if you use a watercolor pencil, like a gray or maybe a blue, since our jar is going to have blue on it, that pencil line will disappear if it hits water. So if you don't want that outline shaped in your painting, draw with watercolor pencils and the lines disappear.
Genius.
I know. Okay, so to do my jar, I'm going to start by drawing the bottom. So the bottom is going to be curved, like so. You don't want the bottom of your jar to be like straight, because if you look at cups on the table or jars, that bottom, can they see my cup in the overhead? Probably not the bottom part, huh? It's because it's rounded. So since it's rounded, it's not gonna be a straight line because the thing itself has a form, it's dimensional, and it's a cylinder shape. So it's gonna be rounded at the bottom, okay? Now you get to decide what kind of jar this is. You can decide if you want your jar to be like those squatty mason jars or long and thin, like more of a vase, like totally up to you. I'm gonna try and just do like more of a standard jar. So it's gonna have a curved bottom, and then I'm gonna put in the sides. And then you can make adjustments from there. So I'm like, okay, I'm putting in my jar. First I like to do the bottom, then I do my sides, and then I decide from there, like, is this jar too thin? Is this jar too thick? And then you just make adjustments to that. So I feel like maybe it's a little bit on the thinner side. So I'm just gonna widen it up just a little bit. And this is how sometimes like slightly drawing it out is super helpful the first time instead of just like painting right away. So after I get my sides, I feel much better about that thickness. The top part rounds in just a little bit. And then the lid of it is also gonna have like a round ellipse similar to our bottom. It's gonna mimic that same rounded shape, like so. And then it has that like threading on the top. And there's the like very tip of it. Now this can be, you notice that I'm not even like filling in the sides because I can imply those lines there. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like a light little sketch. And that's it for step one.
It's like their own little step out sheet thing.
Yeah. I'm just showing you guys my process. So if you ever want to try projects yourself, that's kind of what I do. All right. Now I have my outline. If you have an eraser, you can slightly erase all this stuff. I'm going to leave mine there for you so you guys can kind of see the outline as we go. And I'm just not going to be mad that there's pencil marks on my paper. Okay? So I am going to move on to step two, which is we're going to start adding some color to our jar. So this is kind of like one of those blue mason jars. So it has a little bit of color. It's not perfectly clear. And the wonderful thing that I love about watercolor is it's so transparent. So it actually goes really well with things like glass or water because it has that like light feel to it. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of blue and I mixed in a tiny, tiny bit of green because I really like that kind of like turquoisey color. It's gonna have slightly more blue than green, so it still looks blue, but it's not like that pure sky blue. It's like a sea glass kind of color, you know?
Sea glass?
Sea glass.
Sea glass.
Yeah, do you know what that is?
I don't think so.
I will show you some, it's gorgeous.
Okay.
It's like glass that's been softened by the sea.
Oh, like at a beach that's
Yeah.
been washed against
Yeah,
sand.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Gorgeous.
gorgeous stuff.
Oh. Now I want to go to Hawaii.
So I'm gonna start near the bottom. I'm gonna put that color in. And I'm using my round 6 because it's my wider brush so it fills space faster. And then I'm just gonna use water. So I rinse my brush and I'm just gonna kind of spread this out a little bit. Now you'll notice that I'm focusing more on the bottom and the edges. In the middle, I'm gonna add a little bit here, but I'm not gonna go like this across my entire brush because I really, really wanna leave some white spaces that act as like my highlights. So I'm gonna put some color here. Again, a corner, top right corner. And then I'm just gonna use water to kind of spread it out. Kind of avoiding the middle area. You can touch on it a little bit, but please don't take your brush and fill in that entire thing. And the reason for this is because if you look through glass, especially with water, and you really pay attention to the values that are going on there, you have median values, you have highlights, and you have low lights, like low values. So if you take your brush and you even this out completely, you're gonna lose all sense of dimension that you have with your jar. It's very similar to anything else that you're painting that has form to it. It's just that because glass and water are clear, it really messes with our brain. Like our brain is like, well, how do you draw something that's clear? But you kind of have to like tell your brain to stop talking to you and just do what you see.
Don't do this while driving.
Okay. So I put in a little bit, just a light wash of water. Now, areas that there will be a little bit darker value are like the threads around the top of the jar. So kind of like where that thread is right in the middle. and maybe right where that lip meets the top of the jar. So you can put those in and have those be a little bit darker, and then just do a couple swoops to soften them up. Well, that looks pretty darn good. And you can see I'm really letting my brush strokes show here. It's okay, like, I can't stress to you enough how I don't want this to be an even value that's totally smooth. Really, you know, feel free to just take your brush stroke and brush and just be like, wah, wah, wah. It's helpful if you do those sounds. Okay, yeah, I feel really good about that. And you can finagle with it the more you go, but this is also a little bit more illustrative. So we're just giving people the general idea of what is going on. So don't feel like you have to build out every single thing. And the other thing that I'm kind of noticing right now, and I want to share this with you, is I don't have any color in this upper left, but I have color in this upper right. And what that is doing is it's actually changing the shape of my jar. Do you see that?
Yes.
So it feels like it's uneven. So to solve that, just put a little bit of color up there.
Holy shnikes.
And now the jar doesn't feel lopsided. So just pay attention to those slight things where it's just like, wait, I knew I drew this in and it was even. Why does it feel lopsided? Oh, because it's totally white in that corner, so it's not showing up. Was that really impressive, actually?
Actually just blew my mind. Like, you're not going to be able to fix that lopsided.
Keenan, the whole time you're like, that's lopsided.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Sarah.
Okay, so that is step 2, you guys. That's it. That's all we're doing for our jar right now. Now we'll put in the water in a later step, but we don't need to worry about that right now. We got to let that dry. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to put in our tulip heads. I would assume that's the correct term for them.
It has to be.
I don't know what else they would be.
It's not budding. Not buds.
No, because they're bloomed.
They're bloomed.
So you guys really get to play with the color of your tulips. We have pretty much primary colors here with like a pink, which would act as our red, a blue, and a yellow. So you can mix orange, you can mix peach, you can mix all these different things. And so I did a variation of color, and I'll walk you through how I mixed each one. So the first one I'm going to start with is this guy right here. Now this one is going to be, I grabbed the fuchsia and a tiny, 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 tiny bit of blue. So it has a little purple hint to it, okay? And then this is where it gets really fun. So we're gonna do some wet and wet here. So after you mix it, I want you to grab water. So I rinse my brush, I'm grabbing some water, and I'm gonna do a tulip shape, which essentially is kind of like an oval, okay? So here's my oval with like kind of pointed tops. And then I'm gonna take my fuchsia, and on those pointed tops, I'm gonna drop in some color, and on the right hand side, I'm gonna drop in a little bit of color. And I'm just gonna let that like bleed and go. Now, the wonderful thing about wet and wet is you can change the shape of your tulips. Like I went a little bit wide, so now my tulip is kind of funky. That's all right, round it out. And do it with more color so it just like blends. And if you really want, you can also like do a water drop in there and really play with those textures. This is going to come across as flowers because it's in a jar with leaves. So it's okay if you have some funky textures and hard lines going on there. We kind of want that. It really embraces the watercolor element and lets us have fun. It's a fun thing. It's a cool.
It's pretty.
And it is pretty, Keenan.
When it all comes together, it's just so pretty. Separated would be an interesting picture.
Yes.
Each shape
Yes.
individually would look crazy.
Okay. That's my first tulip. Now the second tulip, I'm going to do a middle one right here. And this one, I'm going to take my fuchsia. I'm going to lighten it up with a little bit of water so it turns into this really pretty light pink. And I'm going to grab the tiniest bit of yellow. So it turns into this really soft pink that almost has a little hint of like peach or blush. Now, if you want it to read more orange, add more yellow, more peach, add more yellow. But just do little bits at a time and then see if you like it. Now, you can put in this tulip using just paint. You don't have to use that same technique of just using water and dropping it in. You can do it a different way, where I'm grabbing this light pink and I draw my tulip. This one's gonna be more in the center. So it's just kind of like rounded, rounded, and then use water to spread it out. So there is the tulip, and then to get kind of like a concentrated feel, I added another swish of pink to this mixture so it's a little bit darker, and I just do kind of like a pink top. And I let that bleed and get messy. Now, I like to live on the edge in my life. So in these cases, while it's wet, and why not just take a tiny, tiny bit of yellow and drop it right in there and just see what it does. And if you don't like it, if you're like, man, I really liked the peach I did before, well then do another layer of peach over a top, or don't drop in the yellow at all. But what I'm trying to say is it's okay for you guys to play. That's how we learn, right? That's how we see what we like and how our style forms, is giving ourselves the freedom to just mess around. And I'm gonna like turn it into a point for this stem. There we go, that feels better. Okay, next tulip. Now also, I'm sure you guys are familiar with tulips, but sometimes they stay tight and sometimes they open up a little bit more, so it's more like a cup shape. Either one is totally fine. These ones I kept more cup shaped. However, I kept more tight shaped. They're more like a ball. But if you want to open them up so they are like a cup, feel free to. It's your life. Okay, next one, I'm gonna do just straight fuchsia. And this one I did using just water, so I'm gonna go back to the technique. Gosh, Kenan, can you believe the texture on that flower? Can you see that close up?
I can't believe it.
It is, I'm so in love with it. Can you see that? So good.
I think we can see it. Just a little bit. It's just not as pretty as it is in real life.
Ah, this is why you guys gotta do this at home. Okay. So I'm gonna do my next tulip. This one's gonna be kind of pointing more in the direction to the right. So I have one kind of going left, I have one going straight up, I'm gonna have one going to the right. So I'm gonna put some water down. And then near the top, I'm gonna drop in just that fuchsia color. And you just are gonna watch that go.
I just love that.
I know. Now, and it's the same thing that's true that happened with our jar. This tulip, even though I put water over there, the color didn't make it to that side, so it's making it seem like it doesn't have a bottom. So if you want, you can leave that, like, why not? It's your painting. Or if you want to just move the color a little bit to help fill that bottom space, do it. And that one ran into my second flower, but I'm not mad about that. There's so many different flowers and bouquets, and it's gonna change along the way. Okay, now the next tulip I'm gonna do is more purpley. So I'm gonna grab more blue, add it to my fuchsia, and get like a nice purpley blue. And if you want, you can totally test colors before you put it down. So to me, I'm like, you know what, maybe that's a little bit too blue. I'm gonna add another stroke of fuchsia in there and be like, oh, that feels much better for what I'm going for. That will feel better with this mix. So I'm gonna do one kind of over here, put some water down. Now my water is colored now. I'm okay with that because my flower is gonna be purple anyway.
Yeah.
If anything, I actually think it's gonna create a really cool effect because I'm gonna have this undercolor wash on it. And now you just drop in some of that mixture near the top. And watch that go. It looks so cool.
I love the bright, happy colors.
Me too.
And then that deep purple.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we do kind of have a fifth tulip that's in the back because I felt like it was missing a space back here, but I'm going to put that in after the leaves, and that also is going to make it seem like that the flowers are like around. There's some in the front and there's some in the back, but I want to put my leaves in first. So we just finished, ooh, okay. We just finished step 3, right?
Nice, yeah.
So we're going to move on to step 4. We're going to put in our leaves. Now the nice thing about tulips is they have these long, thick leaves that like start at the stem and like kind of go out. So it's kind of like, what's this shape?
Triangle?
Kind of like a triangle. Yeah, probably more of a triangle than like leaves we try and do our eye shape. We're gonna try and do more of a triangle shape. Okay.
Cone shape.
Cone shape, yeah. So I'm gonna take some green. Now, my friends, I like to add colors to my green because sometimes I feel like green straight out of the bottle is just like too much of a saturated green to be seen as accurate in nature. However, it is your painting, so you do what you feel is right. Sometimes I add yellow, sometimes I add blue to my green just to like mix it up and give it different colors and to maybe tone down some of that green. So I'm going to start with the leaf on the left-hand side. Now, the only thing that I want you to keep in mind with these leaves is they do come to a point. So you got to make sure that the top is thin, has a point to it, and then it widens out. So I'm going to start with like that guy, give it a little bit of a curve, and then meets my point. Then you fill it in. Now, while it is still wet, I'm going to add a little bit of like blue to a side. I'm going to drop in a little bit of yellow. And it's going to like move and create texture and do its own thing, and I'm going to let it, and I'm going to love it because it's pretty cool. Now we're going to put in some stems. So just from the base of the tulip, put in some stems. Here's one. There's one. And if it touches that pink and it bleeds out, I'm okay with that. I think it's kind of cool. It's not a huge deal. And I'm going to keep adding these leaves around, and I'm just going to work around my flowers. So I'm not going to paint over my flowers because I really want them to be the star of the show. And as you can see in my example, I do have some like really thin white lines in between my leaves and my flowers because I didn't want them to bleed together. Okay? So if you're afraid of like that blue-green bleeding into the flower, well then just like don't touch them together.
Easy solution.
Easy solution, done. Now, if you want to give your green more of a brown look and not be so saturated, mix in a little bit of that fuchsia and it will give you a brown green. So I'm kind of doing the point. I'm going to start to fill it in, and I'm just going to avoid the tulip. Like that. And you can also do water drops for texture in here. And I really like how in the example I had kind of like a soft turquoisey top. I'm going to put that in. So I'm going to lift up some of this green. Just using a damp brush, I'm taking up some of this color. I'm wiping it, drying it off on my paper towel, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue and introduce some blue into that. Oh yeah. That looks nice. Okay. So I really like to play with the different kinds of greens that we're putting in and the different values of green. So this was a lighter value green. This one is both. See how it has a light value and then there's that dark edge on there? And maybe put in a leaf that's dark. So that's what I'm going to do next. This one coming out here is more of a dark green. I mixed green and blue and a little bit of fuchsia. And if they accidentally touch, it is not a big deal. I sometimes love it when things accidentally touch because you get like this stem accidentally touched this flower, but look at that cool texture.
Yeah.
And that is so cool. And even on flowers, when the stem touches the flower, there is a little bit of green that spreads out or yellow. So embrace those things. Don't let them stop you. Just like love them for who they are, you know? They're just doing what they're supposed to do. Like, you can't be mad at the paint and the water for doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And you can't be mad at yourself because you're doing something awesome.
Because you are doing something awesome. Okay, I'm gonna put another dark one back here. This one I'm gonna put like kind of coming off towards the side. And remember, your first go at like putting it in, it doesn't have to be, you can adjust it is what I'm trying to say. You can adjust the shape of it as you go. And your paintings will inform you of what you need to do. So like for me, I'm thinking, you know what, this mouth actually seems really tiny now. Well, it's really great that I didn't fill in the edge because now I can just make my mouth wider and I'll be like, okay, actually it comes out to about there. And that's going to be the mouth of my jar. And then when I go back and I finish off doing some details, I'll have the threading go all the way to the edge. So this is more of a brown green. And I'm going to drop in a little bit of blue here at the base. Because why not?
Yeah.
Now, don't feel like every leaf that you're putting in has to match up with what's going on in the bottom. Sometimes it's not going to, but it's okay because this is like your painting, it's your world, and it's an illustration. And like when things are so many things in a tight space anyway, sometimes you can't follow which stem matches to what. It kind of all melds together in this funky thing. So I don't try and sit there and be like, well, here's the top of the stem, so the bottom stem has to go here. I think more of like compositionally, I don't want this white space in here. So I'm gonna pretend there's a leaf going this way. And that's it. That's all I gotta put in there. Like, it doesn't have to match up totally. Look at my palette. Look how cool that looks. Doesn't that look cool? I love these colors. Okay.
I love that blue.
Yeah. So I'm going to do some more leaves over here. And then I want to do some leaves, but I want to make them a lighter value, like just basically add water to some of these green mixtures I have going on because they'll feel far away. These all feel pretty up close because they're contrasty and they have lots of color and they're a little bit darker. And when I put in, like, let's say I'm going to do a light this way. So because this is a lighter value, it's going to feel like it's farther away. So doesn't that feel like it's kind of behind these two because it's lighter?
It looks like it is.
Yeah, it's just a little trick. So I'm going to do the same thing on a couple of these. Now, if you are starting to get like kind of fuzzy edges doing this, if you're using like our subscription paints and stuff, it's because these colors are super saturated. So there's a couple things that you can do. You can mix some water in it to dilute it, or if you make your shape using water first and then drop in the color, you won't get those fuzzy edges, you will get a sharp edge. So if I'm trying to do a dark, let's just make this one dark. I'll drop in some color. and it won't go past where my water lines are, and it's not going to get that super, super jagged fuzzy edge. Kind of looks like a snake, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Or a slug.
Or a slug.
Green slug.
There we go. So I'm going to do like a lighter. Oh, that's okay. So I was trying to do a light value, but that's too saturated for that. So I'm going to lift up that color, tone it down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like grab a little bit of pink to put over it, to brown it, to desaturate it, make it not so highlighter green. And that's going to help in pushing it back. Oh, this guy didn't get a stem. Let's give him a stem. Okay, now I'm going to do my tulip in the background. Now you can make this whatever color you want. I'm going to go with pink, but I'm going to add water to it to soften it up. Lighten it up, I guess I should say. This is just going to be like just a light tulip in the back. And then let's do another leaf over here, because this space feels empty to me, right? So I'm going to like put in this soft tulip. I want to add a little bit of blue to it, because why not? Now it is about that time as I'm filling things in that I need to like take a step and look at the entire thing and think, okay, how does this feel compositionally? Does it feel super heavy on one side? Does it feel bare in some areas? What can I add to it to help it feel even? Now for me, I want to add like a lighter stem just coming out right here. I don't think I love that these things all are the same height. This one, and this one. See how it makes it feel like a hard stop, where I want the top to kind of go up and down a little bit so it's a smoother transition instead of being like, no, it ends here. And I'm gonna do this in a light value because I want it to feel far away and I don't want it to be too distracting. If you try and do a tall one in really dark colors right in the middle there, that's gonna like overtake your composition a little bit, where that eye is gonna be like, whoa, what's going on over there?
To that spot.
So it's just gonna be like the softest hint, just to change the height a little bit to help. Now, doesn't that feel better? Isn't that funny?
It changes the whole thing.
Yes. Now, the other thing that's kind of distracting to me is I feel like this area feels a little bit bare. Just a little bit. So I'm going to use that same trick. I'm going to use a lighter value so it doesn't become too strong, like it's coming peeking out behind, and just have it go kind of off over this way. Yeah. That feels better to me. And I think I actually want to darken that one up just a little. Not too much, but it feels almost like a bare space because of how light it is compared to what's around it. So just doing another wash of pink. Yep. Okay. I feel really good about my leaves and where they're at. What step was that? Let me look. That was step 4. That was step 4. So good job, you guys. This was like, I feel like trying to navigate the composition of flowers and stuff. It's not an easy thing to do. So if you're struggling with it, you are not alone. It takes a lot of practice, but I would like to say the best thing to keep in mind is to step away from your painting for a second. Look at it from far away, or even take a picture of it and look at it in the picture. It makes things so much more clear of where things might not feel even. when you're doing something, if it feels, you know, too bare on one side or it all is, you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, we're gonna move on to putting our water in our painting. So you can decide your water level if you want it high, if you want it low. I'm gonna do probably like around the middle. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of that blue-green, but I want it to be slightly darker color than what I have going on here. So if you look at a jar of water, and I wish I could show you this same perspective, but there's your water here, and the top of it, whether your water is clear or has a color to it, the top of your water is always gonna be a darker value than the bottom part of your water. It's the top part. So I'm gonna do my little curved line, and when you put in your water, you do not want to do a straight line, because remember, your jar is rounded, so it's going to have a little bit of a round line to it. I believe it's called an ellipse. I think these are ellipses.
I believe you.
Somebody will tell me if it's wrong, but I think that's right. So what I like to do is I like to put in the corners. So I'm going to put in, like, start the curve, and then the other side is also going to be curved. So it kind of has like, that's the shape of the back part. This is the shape of the front part. So I'm going to put in the corner. I'm going to like lift up my brush a little bit and kind of put in the middle. And then I'll put in the other corner. Now I like to do this because, as you can see, this is a little bit crooked. So it's helpful to do it in little spaces, and that way I can adjust it. So maybe I should run an imaginary line across and see where those corners are. There's the bottom, actually. So you just kind of have to like put a little bit in. It's kind of like drawing with your paintbrush. There we go, that feels much better. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of water and blend these lines out in the center. Now I want the middle part to stay pretty light. So I'm just kind of like focusing on the edges a little bit and the front. So now it feels like there's water in there, right? We have our water top, so you can see that the water, that's the back part, that's the front part on this three-dimensional jar. Does that feel like water?
It looks just like water.
Okay, great. And I want you guys to pay attention to something. The roundness of the bottom is going to match the same roundness of your water line, is going to match the same roundness of the top of your jar. And that's because it's our perspective of that jar. We're looking at it from the same angle, the bottom, the middle, and the top. They're going to have that same rounded angle. If you try and adjust that, then you're trying to put two different perspectives on the same thing. Okay, so we put in our water, and then I'm gonna kind of adjust this like top of the jar a little bit. It's just little adjustments. Don't be afraid to be like, well, I already did the top of the jar. Well, if it, like for me, it kind of like ended weird, I need to like fill that in over there and have that match this way. And just kind of be a little bit like just sketches. Like you don't have to like do super hard lines. Okay. Now we're going to put in our leaves and our stems in the water. This is step 6. Yeah, step 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you are putting anything, if like something is going in and out of a jar, it's gonna try and match up a little bit, but the thing I want you to pay attention to is it's gonna be a lighter value, and that's how we communicate that it's behind a clear space. So I'm gonna get some green. I'm gonna make sure it's lighter than the green value that's up here, and I'm gonna start putting in these stems. So there's that stem. This one kind of comes out here. You don't have to match them exactly. If they don't line up, it's not the biggest deal. This one kind of comes across this way. We have a little bit of like leaf action over here. That's in the jar. Now, I'm avoiding the threaded area, and I'm not going all the way to the water line, like this dark spot. I'm just going to the middle. So I'm going to put some of these leaves in. You just want to make sure that they're really, really light. And we're going to be blending some of them out anyway because they're all like bunched together. So you might not just see 3 individual stems. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I've bought flowers before.
Yeah.
And this looks just like that.
It looks just like it. You're doing a great job. Okay, now when they get into the water, it's going to be an even lighter value because not only is it through water, it is also through glass. So we have to differentiate. This is through the glass. Now we're looking through the water, through the glass. It's going to be even lighter. Now I'm going to do my stems. I'm not going to have it connect. I'm going to give it space right where that ellipse is because that water edge is cutting off that view of my stem that I would be seeing if I was painting from life. So this is like the lightest green. It's just like the softest hint. A barely there color. And it's just enough information so our viewer knows what's going on. Again, this is not a super realistic painting. This is more of an illustration. But it just shows you that you can take those same basic principles as if you were drawing from realistic, give hints to them, and it communicates to the viewer just the same. And I feel like it gives you freedom then to play. I can do my shapes whatever I want, I can do leaves whatever I want, like I don't care, I'm just having a good time. Now that color is too dark, I'm just gonna lift it up using water. Okay, that's it. Now we're on the very last step, which is details, step number 7. And this is where I really want you to take a second and see if there's any kind of adjustments that you need to make it feel like the correct shape, like it's full, like nothing is distracting. Now my jar, I want to add a slightly darker value on the bottom of my jar. So I'm going to do another swoop of kind of like this blue on here. And it's covering up the green, and that's okay. I just want it to feel a little bit more solid, so I'm going to put a slightly darker value on there. And I also kind of want to define my top a little bit more. It's loose. I think it does the job well now, but I feel like I could make it a little bit better. So I'm going to be like, you know what? I need to be more clear on what's happening on the top here. So I'm going to do more of that rounded edge. And I'm going to be a little bit more aware of my threads. They have a kind of rounded corner. This is where it's helpful to take a step back and see if anything feels lopsided. And what's funny is you guys could be watching this, and since you're looking through a camera, which is just farther away than how I am up close to it, it might be way more apparent to you that some area is lopsided than I am. And it's because I'm so close to this that it's hard for me to actually see it. So when you're at home, take the time to step away. Yeah, that feels good. I feel good about that. Okay, that's it. Actually, no, I'm gonna do this corner. There we go, that feels better. Okay, If you painted this project with let me start over. If you painted this project with us, thank you so much. I would like to say that this is a really difficult project in general. Glass, water, flower composition, those are all really hard things. So if you're feeling frustrated, that's okay. And just be proud of yourself that you attempted this. Like, this is a big deal. So good job. Good job for doing this. We would love to see how it turned out. All of these are gonna look so different since we're freehanding it and we have wet on wet techniques and we're mixing colors. So share it so we can see how you approach the same project. If you're on Instagram, tag us, Let's Go Make Art, or use the hashtag Let's Make Art. If you're on Facebook, we would love to see that. Our company Facebook is Let's Go Make Art. And we also have this really wonderful Facebook group called Let's Make Art Watercolor. And that is really just for sharing your work. So if you want to be in a place where you can see how people approach the same project, if you want to see what other watercolorists are working on, it's for everybody, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced. We want to see what you're making. Very supportive, really fun group. So check those out. If you need any of these supplies, we have them on our website, letsmakeart.com. You can buy the kit for this that comes with paper, paint, step-by-step instructions. It's just 15 bucks if you want to give it a try. Or we have a great subscription box, 4 kits for the entire month, $35.
Yeah.
What a deal. Or you can just use whatever you have at home. Watch this video, paint with us. I still want to see what you're making. You guys are awesome. I think that's all I need to say. Bye.